soldier and to commit an act of heroism as Captain Khan did when he was killed by that bomb, that vehicle bomb that pulled up to the checkpoint, and he told his troops to step back, let me check it out. He was killed. He's a hero. His parents, on the other hand, appear to have an agenda, and it does not besmirch the honor, dignity, and service of Captain Khan.
Well, the parents are still alive, and they have all their limbs. Captain Khan doesn't have that luxury.
So what is it that, did he honestly prepare their tax returns? Because this is what the media is saying in the papers today, but you have to really dig for it.
Well, it's a perfect example of liberal controlled media. You have a situation here where, of course, we're all sorry for their loss, and the son was a hero, but it was portrayed that Trump is some kind of a horrible person because he took the situation and he answered back. But the same situation, when you look at Patricia Smith in the Republican convention, and she was brought in, and liberal controlled media said, how could you dare use that person? How could you have the nerve to bring her in? It was liberal controlled media that looks at the situation and makes Hillary wonderful for Patricia Smith, but Trump a villain for responding to Mr. Khan.
When that liar, Hillary Clinton, actually was being interviewed by Chris Wallace, and to his credit, Chris Wallace asked her a question about Miss Smith. You know what her answer was? Well, it's unfortunate, and I do appreciate her son's sacrifice, so forth, so on in Benghazi. Sacrifice? They were abandoned. They were thrown out to the wind and allowed to be attacked and overrun and murdered because Obama's government, meaning President Obama, refused to give an order to save these men.
President Obama and Hillary.
Do you know what Chris Wallace said to her? He asked her. You know what she says? Well, it's not my fault. I know that under stress and under emotional duress, people remember things wrong. She was basically calling Miss Smith a liar.
Basically, yes.
She was to my viewers, our viewers out there. Do you know that Chris Wallace interviewed this Hillary Clinton, where a few minutes after she lied about what FBI Director Comey said, meaning he didn't say anything bad, I didn't do anything wrong, and the server was actually not that bad. It wasn't a big deal. She then pivoted and said, with regard to Miss Smith, whose son was killed in Benghazi? Oh, no. She may have misremembered what it was I actually told her on the tarmac. She's a liar. She's diabolical, and she's not a nice person. Can you imagine? Like you said.
I think they're calling. Remember when they used to call Bill Slick Willie? I think they're calling the wrong one Slick. I think she's slicker than he ever was.
There's slick and there's slicker, and she's definitely slicker.
Yeah.
I think, what's her name? Hillary Rodham, named after the fictitious guy who climbed Mount Everest, she wasn't even born at the time, so she couldn't have been named after it. Was it something like that?
Yeah, she has the wrong number of L's.
That's what she claimed,
She's
but
a liar.
It was
What
6
did
years
Jesus
after
say?
she
Jesus
was born.
said of Satan, he goes, Satan was a born liar. He's a liar because there is no truth in him. There will never be any truth in him. He lies even when he speaks. I got to tell you, when Donald Trump called Hillary Clinton the devil, I know he didn't mean, figurative, literally that she's the devil, but this woman seems to have absolutely no grasp of simple human decency.
Not at all.
She's not decent. She's not honest, and there's no honor in this woman.
Hey,
she's a power whore. Can I say it any differently or bluntly? Hillary Clinton is a power whore.
I got 2 words for you: career politician. That's what they do. That's who they are. You're giving career politicians a bad name, because even the most career politician, some of them actually do have some honor and decency to them. Now, I can't think of too many, and I wouldn't even put... It's a short list.
John McCain, a war hero who actually served his country and did time, 4 or 5 years over there in Hanoi Hilton, I think. He was tortured and everything else, and he refused to be released even though his father was an admiral or an admiral. There's a man with honor. Now, his politics is messed up. I don't agree with it. But I got to tell you, Hillary Clinton has no honor. Is John McCain a career politician? Of course he is. All right? You got to say there's good and bad with him, but he's not all bad. With Hillary, is there anything good about Hillary Clinton? Can anyone out there email me and tell me what is good about Hillary Rotten Clinton, her lies, her husband, her family, and the government of Barack Hussein Obama, which has seen this country in 7.5 years, almost 8 years now, go down the damn tubes?
There is one good thing. She's predictable. You know she's going to lie. You know she has no honor, she has no decency. And given the circumstance, she'll lie out of force of habit.
How do you know she's lying? Her lips are moving.
Murdoch, Doc is a doc. He's not I don't call him Doc as an operative because he's an operative. He's a doc. He's a legal expert, lawyer, and he's also a person who has
he knows his stuff. I'm very impressed. First time we ever met.
Has a vast knowledge of the U.S. tax code, so forth and so on. But I can tell you this much, Doc. When someone lies pathologically, is that a character defect defect? Is it a mental illness? Is it some sort of a superiority complex, or all the three?
It's symptomatic of a borderline personality. It's a person that should never be given power because they corrupt by the power to a greater extent than anybody else.
So psychologically speaking, from a psychoanalytic standpoint, how would you describe Hillary Rotten Clinton's personality?
Definitely borderline personality. She's
And what
not
does that
overtly
mean exactly,
psychotic,
borderline?
but borderline means that she is right at the part where she can function, but the slightest amount of stress could push her over the edge. And that's somebody who has nuclear codes. So if we're having a bad situation, she could be pushed right over the edge.
Compared to Trump's personality, whose personality would you say is more stable and normal?
With Trump, you know what you're getting. He's a businessman. If he screws up, the business fails. So he makes his business not to screw up. Now he is putting his own business, a very successful business, on the side, and he says right now he wants to help the country. I believe him. And I think that if he hits some situations difficult, he'll surround himself with smart people and figure out the answer.
I think
Trump, there's something I gotta throw in here, okay? You hear all this stuff, all these people throwing out all these negatives about Trump. You know, he's a terrible person. He'll be a terrible president. He's
on the liberal-controlled media.
Yeah, exactly.
On the liberal-controlled, the MSN, the mainstream media.
And CNN.
No, CNN, the Clinton News Network, and all the others.
Clinton News Network. But I can't help but remembering that this is one of the benefits, and you and I, Doctor, we were discussing being all of us being a certain age, all right? And I have a pretty good memory. So I remember 1980. And I remember when Ronald Reagan was running for president. And much of the same stuff that the same liberal media is saying about Trump now, they were saying about Reagan back then and giving people all kinds of reasons why they should be afraid of this man being president.
And America elected him.
That's right.
And
America's pretty smart.
The
America's pretty smart.
Every state but one, or every state?
You can write off one state if you got 49.
And not only did the people ignore what the media was trying to force feed them,
right,
and give the man a chance, instead of being everything that they told us to be afraid of, the man goes on to be one of our better presidents, probably one of the best.
In my lifetime.
Absolutely.
So I'm thinking, what if we got the same situation here with Trump?
I think we do.
I think we do, and the mainstream media is there in panic and panic control and in damage control mode right now. They think by banning him as mentally unstable and this and that, by banning him some kind of a guy who can't be trusted with the Trump University and all that crap, and so forth and so on, they're going to turn off a lot of people.
Because they're in the Democratic tank the way they've always been.
Shamelessly so.
Yeah. Now, here's another thing, okay? All right? I also seem to recall that, going back even further than that, I can pretty much pinpoint to you when the media became this monster that it's become over the last 40 years. And that was when Watergate went down and Nixon had to leave office in disgrace. And the media played a big part in that. And that's when they crossed a very dangerous threshold, because that's when they realized we have the power to bring down a sitting president. We didn't know we had that much power before, but now that we do, oh boy, look out. And that's what we've been seeing going on in this country ever since. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't some of that going on before the Nixon thing, but it went into overdrive after that.
Not only do they have the power to bring down a sitting president, Richard M. Nixon, they had the power to create a president. We're talking about John F. Kennedy, who would be, by today's standards, unacceptable to the modern Democratic Party.
True.
He would be far too much to the right. And he was a good president. He only served 1,000 days. He was assassinated November 22nd, 1963. Remember when Mr. Kennedy's father, Joseph B. Kennedy, said we're going to market Jack like soap flakes in order to create the atmosphere? The media was behind him. You had personalities like Frank Sinatra singing that song, J-A-K-E-N-E-D-Y. He's the nation's favorite guy. Everyone wants to back Jack. Jack is on the right track. It was all a whole complex of creating an entertainment kind of sort of celebrity atmosphere, which kind of, I think, really cheapened the whole idea of presidential elections. Fast forward to 1970. When was Watergate? 72 or
72 through 73, 74 when Nixon resigned.
It was, President Nixon was brought down primarily by those two reporters at the Washington Post.
Woodward and Bernstein.
Woodward and
And
Bernstein,
then the rest
who
of
have
the
nothing to say about Hillary Rodham Clinton.
the rest of the media jumped in full bore, and then next thing you know.
Murdoch, I want you to look at the camera, and I want you to please, calling Woodward and Bernstein, Washington Post, Woodward and Bernstein, please look into the Clinton Foundation.
Well,
Why, Mr. Murdoch?
Well, I think now, of course, now I'm not sure. I think one of them's dead now. So I think.
All right, all right, let's have a seance.
I think Bernstein's the one that's dead. I'm not sure.
Bernstein, we're going to have a seance for you, okay? However, Woodward, if you're still alive, do me a favor, do us a favor here at the Mandrake Roundtable. And I'm dead serious. What? You're a talented individual. You helped. You contributed to the downfall of a president who, through his own actions and paranoia, essentially created the atmosphere for people like you who are bottom feeders to destroy him. He was relatively a good president. You guys are globalists, aren't you, Mr. Woodward? You're a globalist. Nixon, apparently, by opening up China, created the whole thing where now we don't make a damn thing in this country anymore. And we have the Environmental Protection Agency, a dictatorial bureaucratic entity that's destroying farms and destroying every kind of incentive to create business in different areas. You guys should be going after the Clinton Foundation, and you should be on Nixon's side. But do me a favor, Mr. Woodward, if you're still alive, and Mr. Bernstein, God rest your soul, but if you're looking down, please look into the Clinton Foundation. 10% of the $2 billion as of 2016, it's only August, went to help, the earthquake victims in Haiti. Is that one of the things that
Part of it, plus making AIDS medication accessible to 9 million people. But they really should be spending a bigger percentage on helping people. 10% is unacceptable.
10%?
Yeah.
Well, they say that the average amount of money from a donation to a nonprofit organization is about 15% goes to actual helping
Administrative. Well,
administrative.
Yeah, you have administrative costs, and that includes people's salaries being paid. And but then a lot of it is just nonsense that just winds up in somebody's bank account that shouldn't.
Does anybody here remember Hillary Clinton was on the Watergate committee for a short time before she was thrown off?
I remember she was on. What was she thrown off for?
She was thrown off because the judge in charge, I don't know his name, anyone can Google it, decided that she gave indications, she submitted documents and things that proved her to be untrustworthy to the judge. He documented it. This is a quote, paraphrase, that Mrs. Clinton is not trustworthy to be on this committee and so forth and so on, and so he removed her from it. And this is in 1972. She was removed for dishonesty then. Now, has anybody ever seen archival footage of what Hillary Clinton looked like in the 1970s when she was over at Radcliffe College?
Apparently she was cute.
You mean Wellesley?
Yeah. Wesleyan.
No,
wasn't
Wellesley.
she at Radcliffe?
Yeah.
She at Harvard, or where was she?
Well, I know. I keep hearing that she was at Wellesley.
You may be right. Was it Wellesley or Wesleyan? I forgot.
I don't go back that far, but I remember she was at Yale Law School. So.
All right. Well, in any event, if you look her up, I mean, she had this look on her face of a kind of person that she seemed kind of a hippie type. She was wearing these here sort of like candy striped pants, and she
had the long hair and all that. And I think there was even a time or two then when she actually wore skirts.
I doubt it, man. Now she wears pantsuits to hide the, these sort of like these thick thighs that she has, and this sort of upside down kind of, shape that she has.
All this would be forgiven if she was an honest person.
I know.
But she's the most dishonest person on planet Earth.
Well, I don't know. Barack Hussein Obama, to me, is dishonest as well. Because it's not just your actions or what you say that makes you dishonest.
Not as.
He's much more sophisticated about his dishonesty. Remember, ignorance is bliss, but ignorance could also be dishonesty. You could say, I don't know that.
I think a lot of the problem with Obama is that, he's put into a situation where he had to become dishonest because
I don't
know the man. I can't say that for sure. But I think what happened was a lot of what you see from him as far as the dishonesty has to cover up the fact that the man just wasn't ready to be president. I've been saying that for the beginning. That was my first question when this guy first got pushed up for the nomination and eventually won the nomination.
But aren't you impressed? Aren't you impressed that he got a Nobel Prize? For nothing. He was given the prize in anticipation of what they thought he was going to do, which he didn't do.
That's kind of like getting a
Nobel Peace Prize.
That's kind of like getting a participation trophy now in sports. You didn't really do anything, but you were on the team.
So
pretty
it's
much.
modern liberalism, which is a mental disorder, according to Michael Savage. Modern liberalism says that you get participatory accolades even so that nobody's actual achievements really matter, and it levels the playing field. Remember, the Democratic Party, which is the party of slavery, Jim Crow, the party of the Ku Klux Klan, which was the military faction of the Democratic politics at the time. Remember, Woodrow Wilson, he was a big fan of Birth of a Nation and so forth and so on. The Democratic Party itself is utterly dishonest. And so, in order to spread the misery around and to equalize everybody so that they can emerge as elites, they had to dumb the nation down, flood the nation with the entire world, except for the European world since 1965. And this way, at some point in time, they're hoping to form, I think, some kind of a globalist entity with an elite class that runs everything.
But Murdoch and I were talking about another thing that we haven't touched on, but we should.
Yes.
Racism in the last 8 years.
Oh, yeah.
Because I felt before the last 8 years, the racism was kind of like melting out and everybody's on their own merits. And we were like colorblind and gender neutral. And all of a sudden, it seems like racism is on the rise.
Well, about gender neutrality, whenever I see a very attractive female form walk by, I can't help but notice the gender. Am I right or wrong?
Yep.
That gender neutrality is like liberalism, Marxism.
Same pay for the woman that does the same job. I don't think most people have a problem with that.
And
what about racism? Let's talk about that for a minute. Isn't there more racism now than there was 8 years ago?
I feel it. As a white man, I feel it when I'm in the undisclosed locations in major city urban areas like New York City metropolitan transportation. Now you see people kind of notice each other. And yet when you have an individual one-on-one encounter with a person who may be African American or Hispanic or whatever they may be, look, you know what? You see that individually, one-on-one, people are not racist, but as a group, it seems like there's a narrative out there that there's widespread racism, widespread police brutality, widespread hatred among the classes and the races and everything else, and it's all fostered by the democratic mindset, liberal mindset, and since Obama became president.
Okay, now look, here's my take on at least one aspect of it, and I've been telling people this for years, and a lot of people think that I'm crazy when I say this, but I still believe it. The problem, at least part of the problem, is that whether people realize it or not, racism in this country has actually evolved. It used to be that racism was you had one race that was the downtrodden and put upon and oppressed, and the other race that was the cruel, heartless oppressor. All right? Now, we live in an age where modern day racism, the playing field is more even. We got racism now on both sides, and the thing about it is, a lot of people in the African American community now seem to think that because of whatever happened 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 400 years ago, whatever, that it's okay for us to be racist now. It's what I call tit-for-tat racism, okay? As if that's going to make up for anything, as if that's going to progress anything any further. And the people in the African American community who believe this seem to think that there's no problem. It's like you get a free pass. Now, if the two of you were to look at me and say the N-word or say something disparaging about me, then, y'all are horrible people. But I can call you guys cracker all day long and I get a free pass.
Very true.
It's a double standard.
Now you tell me one form of racism is just as bad as the other. And I think that's a lot of what's going on nowadays. And people don't want to face up to that fact.
What will it take to get rid of racism? What will it take to get rid of racism?
Well, pretty much what Mr. Mandrake here just touched upon. More people having one-on-one interaction with each other.
Shouldn't we be colorblind? I mean, wouldn't that be the best way? Somebody on their own merits rather than have to pay reparations for 400 years?
Which is what Black Lives Matter, or as somebody actually told me, I don't know if you remember Kason Jackson, he actually joked around and said, "Crack lives matter." Crack lives matter. He is a representative of the community, and he's in an undisclosed location.
I think that was Kason injecting a little humor into stuff. Remember, this is the same guy that said how beer was invented by black people,
and he believed it too.
Which we all know.
I
think he was kidding.
No, in any event, about racism, colorblindness, and all this other stuff, we can't take humanity from humans. They're going to notice differences in people, just as surely as they know genders. They recognize genders in people.
That's true. In a perfect world, yeah.
I got to be honest. We discussed this in show prep in the limousine while we were kind of imbibing a little bit, trying to loosen up and talk.
Is your limousine out there? I didn't realize.
Right. Cool. It's a 1972 Cadillac.
He has a limousine, but he doesn't have a chauffeur. He has to drive it.
I have to drive it. But what we were discussing is that, my God, I mean, I don't think I've ever met a genuine racist in my life, to be honest with you. Now, I met a lot of people of color, blacks or whatnot, who kind of don't like the white cracker. And I met some rednecks who were kind of in the media who were being, who were actually outwardly acting as white supremacists. But individually, I gotta be honest with you, even some black brothers who I met knew that were mad at me or whatnot, after a little bit of back and forth, I kind of felt that we related, and there was no real racism.
Hey, now remember, when we first met, when you and I were both doing another job, he's not kidding, folks. I saw a lot of this. In fact, for the longest time,
careful what you say.
I told him that he was an honorary black man. He just hadn't got his card yet.
I didn't get my HBM card in the mail. It's been lost, and I want my HBM card.
You have to learn to dance first.
I don't have much rhythm, but you know what? I can try. And that's another thing.
Trust me, y'all. I've seen this. This dude is more down with the brothers than he comes across on TV.
Please. You know what? They're gonna think. You know what's going to happen? The brothers out there that are against people like you and I and us getting along are going to call you and Uncle Tom and me a cracker.
Oh no. There's a new term now for people like me that they use.
What's that?
They call us coons.
No, that's old.
No. It's a recycled version. See, all right, just like the N-word got recycled, now black people use that word, which originated as a derogatory term by white racists against blacks. Now black people use it to describe people like me who don't stay on the plantation, so to speak.
You know, the Democratic Party has kept.
We used to be Uncle Toms and Oreos, now we're coons.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Uncle Tom comes from
Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Wasn't that written by Huckleberry Finn and? Who wrote the book?
No. It's Huckleberry Finn was Mark Twain. Samuel Clemens.
Oh yeah,
Samuel Clemens, right? That was his.
That was
Uncle Tom, Harry Beecher Stowe.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, all right. So, I just don't understand. I mean, why there has to be this division among black versus white? Why Black Lives Matter has now released a manifesto demanding reparations, demanding that the police step down.
Old hat.
I mean, you got to be kidding me. Does Black Lives Matter? And look, I respect the fact that all lives matter. And I respect the fact that the police have a difficult job and they're expected to wear many hats, including being social workers and psychologists and, and utilizing brute force when they have to maintain order and to protect life and property. But you know what? Most blacks, most whites, most Hispanics want law and order, and Black Lives Matter doesn't seem to reflect that desire, which tells me they're on the left and they're a fringe group. Look, and the fact that they were invited to the White House by Barack Hussein Obama, it's a travesty.
And invited by Hillary Clinton to advise her.
Yeah. In fact, weren't there mothers of the movement, so-called, at the Democratic Convention? Yep. Mm-hmm. Now, were there mothers of the police officers, 9 of which were murdered, hunted down, and shot to death in Dallas, Texas, no more than a month ago? Were they mentioned, or were their parents and family members there?
No,
okay, maybe they were mentioned.
I know we're kind of getting.
You should be ashamed of yourself, Miss Clinton.
We're kind of getting into touchy territory talking about BLM.
Oh, brother.
And yeah, if you recall, before I went on my leave of absence, I kind of went on a few tears about them, But I will say this, and I will repeat it. Okay. I will take Black Lives Matter seriously when they have just as much vitriol for the black thug gangbangers who shoot down hundreds of black men in the streets of this country every day, much more so than what you see of white police officers doing, okay? But you don't hear a peep about that.
To the viewers out there, we're trying to express, I think I speak for Mr. Murdoch and Doc, that we're trying to say, look, all lives matter. Now, with regard to Chicago, there were some 843 shootings in the last, it's only August. I don't know how many of them have been fatal. It may even be more. I mean, these shootings are not by white people hunting black men and women down in the streets, or police officers, going to work one day, putting on their 9mm and saying, you know what, I'm going to shoot somebody today. They try, police, very hard to defuse situations, to use minimal force, and to, in many cases, guide their behavior by the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. So they'll give somebody a little courtesy or maybe some kind of a warning and so forth. However, when you're fomenting hatred among the races and you're branding the police who represent law, order, and civilization itself, the preservation of civilization itself, when you're demonizing them, you're a criminal and you really are a threat to the republic and an enemy of the state. And I'm talking to you people out there who know what it is that you're doing, but you don't seem to care. You know why? Because no lives matter to you except your own.
Now, let me throw this in, okay? All right. See, one of the things that's really messed up about the whole situation is that these people want to cast this aspersion that all police are racist who are out to kill black people, all right? Never mind the fact that if you look at the statistics, I think it was something like 800. So far this year, there have been like 800, maybe 850 people who were killed in armed confrontations with police-involved shootings, as they call them. And only 125 of those were black people.
The majority of shootings, police on civilians is white males being shot.
Or Hispanic, or somebody else. But you don't hear all this uproar about that.
Hey, Doc, did you see the news yesterday? There was a special on Mrs. What's her name from Fox News? The cutie pie one at 9 o'clock. Kelly
Megyn Kelly,
who I've learned to dislike. I find her to be a little bit too much.
Hey, no, wait a minute. Now she and Donald have kissed and made up. You don't have to hate her anymore.
I do hate her, but not for those reasons. She had a very good show yesterday, Miss Kelly, where there was a shooting, police-involved shooting involving a woman who had prior encounters with the police.
With the shotgun in her lap and a 5-year-old child.
And a 5-year-old child. Doc, what is your take on that?
Well, I think the liberal-controlled media could spin that any way they want, but the reality is you should not have your child and a loaded shotgun in your lap. And when you poke a shotgun out the door at a police officer, you got to realize you're going to be shot. There isn't any way in the world for the police officer to act differently. If he didn't, he'd be putting his life and other people's lives at risk.
Yeah. Mr. Murdoch, you heard what Doc said. Can you believe that there was a so-called member of the community, a black pastor, who's really like a street preacher, but he looks like a young thug. I mean, he acts like one. He speaks like one. He doesn't necessarily look like one, but he speaks like one. He actually was justifying the fact that the woman was doing nothing wrong because she could shout at the police, and I quote, "I'm going to shoot you if you come in here." He said, as a preacher, that's free speech. The police shouldn't have taken that seriously.
It's not protected
this
speech.
This is intellectual dishonesty.
It's not protected if it's harmful.
It's free speech until there's a gun in your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Murdoch.
Okay, that's all there is to it.
But what about the headline? The headline said, "Woman with baby, 5-year-old baby in lap is shot by cop." Isn't that a little bit of distortion of the facts?
Because they don't mention the fact that she was armed and pointing her weapon.
Woman was shot.
The liberal media out there, I'm talking about the New York Times on down to the Boston Globe, which is owned by the New York Times. That's the Sulzberger family, Arthur Sulzberger Jr., who's known as Pinch. I actually met his father, Punch. I could tell you people one thing. You journalists, whether you're in Staten Island, New York, Brooklyn, or in the Daily News building over there in Manhattan, you people are no good. You know why? Because you are the problem with your propaganda. You're trying to say that this woman was a victim. You know she wasn't a victim. She may have actually had mental problems, but she was responsible for her own death. And nobody can take that away. You can't say the police should have sat there and played patty cake with her, could have taken any other action than they did. You people are the problem, just the same way you're the problem with trying to shift this election away from Donald Trump, a person who is now mentally unstable. Hillary Clinton is mentally unstable. You people in the media should be ashamed of yourselves. And guess what? Your children, if you have any, because most of you have a cat or a dog rather than a child, you people in the media are going to inherit the whirlwind. Well, can somebody say something?
And see the weird thing, and we got 2 minutes left here. 2-minute warning. Okay, see, the bad thing about it is that we have a media in this country that doesn't know anything about being, as one of them likes to call themselves, fair and balanced. There is no fair and balanced. The only fair and balanced is when you watch everything and draw your own conclusions from each one.
Mr. Murdoch.
But all of them are biased, and most of them are liberal.
You lying liberals out there. You'll tell the masses any goddamn crap they want to hear, and guess what? You're responsible for the garbage in this country today, the things that are happening. Now, I want to ask the staff here, I want to ask the Mandrake crew here, what does it mean the silent majority stands with Trump? We found this, we brought this in because I'm wondering who the silent majority is.
Well,
and they stand with Trump. Why not Hillary? Why didn't Hillary have a sign? The silent majority stands with Hillary. What does it mean?
Well, silent majority is opposed to the very verbal, vocal minority. So in this case, the silent majority, hopefully, is what we're going to hear in November. They will get Trump elected.
Last words, Mr. Murdoch.
And the silent majority, which is a term that goes way back, I remember when it was first being used in the 60s, has never been applied or applicable to liberals.
Absolutely.
That's pretty much
silent majority, a bunch of liberal scum
It's
out
like
there.
you said, the small vocal minority, meanwhile the rest of us are going, you know what? ain't where I'm at.
Well, I'd like to thank my panel, my distinguished panel, Matt Murdoch, and
I'm back.
Matt Murdoch is back, and I'm your,
Pleasure to
humble,
meet you, Doctor.
your
to
humble
meet
host,
you,
Lionel
Murdoch.
Mandrake of the Lionel Mandrake radio program, and we will see you again next week. Remember, channel 79, 10 a.m. We are on, and also at other times. And I want everyone out there to think about this. The media is your enemy. Donald Trump has a plan to try and return America back to some form of state of law and order. God bless America, and thank you, gentlemen.